All right. Welcome to another episode of Live Talk. I'm so grateful that I get to have a good friend of mine and someone that I've been following for a while. Connor Murphy has been doing a lot of great things in the fitness industry, now transitioning into a more spiritual connection with everything. I'm glad that you guys are tuning in the long awaited podcast with Connor. Connor, welcome and thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Can you, to start off, for the audience and the people that don't know you yet, give a little bit of a brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so most people actually know me from the old content I used to make. So when I was in college, I really didn't want to get a normal job. I was dreading it. So I decided to look at something else that I could do that might be a little more fun. I've always had a good physique. And so I started posting these videos online. I was trying to go viral within the fitness community so I could kind of build a business around it. And so I did these interesting videos where essentially I would pick up girls with my shirt off and stuff like that. So my most popular video has like 60 million views. It's called the Connor Murphy fake shirt trick. I have a little piece of fabric by my collarbone with a jacket on, and I asked girls to guess the color of the shirt under the jacket. And most of them are saying red because the little piece of fabric is red and they think that that's my shirt. But then I'm like, nope, I unzip the shirt or I unzip the jacket and I'm like shirtless, right? And they give a good reaction because especially at the time, my physique was even better at the time. But so yeah, that's kind of the old style videos that I used to do. And that's what I've been known for, right? So, from the outside, it looks very very surface level, very materialistic. A lot of people would call it very douchey. And then all of a sudden I kind of made this radical shift to teaching more spiritual content and develop this interesting type of yoga that I think is very useful. So right now, the average person who watches my stuff thinks that I'm going absolutely insane, right? Because have made such a dramatic transformation, and most people don't understand what spirituality even is, or they have no idea about it, right? And I wouldn't argue against them that I'm going crazy, but I would argue that the crazy that I am has absolutely no downsides. It's been incredibly liberating, and my life is better now than it ever has been, and I'm really enjoying it.
That is amazing. And you're talking about Premazati yoga. Sorry for my Dutch accent. I might not pronounce it
No,
correctly.
that's yeah, it's good, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys, it is incredible. And I'm talking from experience here because once Connor started sharing this, I was like, I gotta try this because I felt the energy, I felt the, what he was doing. So once I resonated with, I started executing it and in bed in different locations, and then breathing and you guys know I do bioenergetics exercises. I do a lot of meditations regarding breathing. Um, so this was something that I connected with, and not just me, but all the incredible female friends that I've been doing it with as well. And uh, I did share a couple things on my Instagram and stories because I started doing it on TikTok. And I think a lot of people don't understand it yet.
Right.
And I see on your socials a lot of misunderstanding and um, where do you think that comes from? And is it because society is not ready for it yet, or is it because people are not spiritually liberated enough?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of misunderstanding. I think, first of all, people don't know what yoga actually is, right? So the modern Western mind, they only know what Western yoga is, which is more of it's focused on the positions, right? And like stretching and even like fitness, right? Real yoga actually comes from the Sanskrit word yoj, which means to join, right? And real yoga, the real yogis of the East, it's really more of a meditative thing. And it's about finding out the nature of reality through specific spiritual practices, right? And that's what yoga is really about. And so I think it stemmed from, first of all, people don't have any exposure to these Eastern cultures. They don't know about that spiritual realm of the world and anything about that, right? And so when I create this new type of yoga that's it's really far out there, it's something that people have never seen. It's actually a unique combination of different types of yoga, such as like tantra, kundalini yoga, and pranayama yoga. But the thing is that the average Westerner knows nothing about that, right? They've never seen any type of yoga besides the Western yoga model, right? And so when they see me doing this weird stuff online and they relate it to the yoga that they know, they're like, well, what? That, of course, that's not yoga, right? And so they're like, oh, he must just be like trolling, or it must not be real, or something like that, right? So I think it just kind of stems from the ignorance to what yoga is really about.
Okay, and I also see a lot of people commenting on that it's like tantra,
Hmm.
um, that it's has something to do with porn. Like what do you say to those people? Because it is, let's be honest here, it is quite sexual, but
Yeah,
again, it is not it.
right.
It's for me, share from my experience. It's I went through a lot of emotions doing it, and even
Really.
the girl, right? You feel excitement, you feel sadness, you feel laughter, you feel all kinds of things, because you basically, this is what I love about it, guys. You basically drop the ego. You are completely exposed in front of each other, in some kind of like, um, you know, uh, strange position
Mhm.
that you consciously do, because like you want to connect that way, and drop any barriers and mental barriers that you created, or opposed on yourself. So by dropping them and by connecting through breathing and eye contact, you feel that discomfort, and that discomfort is again created by the mind, and blocking it. And so you opening yourself to so many experiences and psychological roller coasters that you would not experience any other way. That is my experience. Again, um, I see a lot of people that don't understand it and say it's boring, but yeah, please elaborate a little bit on why people say that, and what your experience is doing this.
Yeah, I mean, technically, they might not be wrong. Like, for example, I mean, if I were to do prima sada yoga with the girl with no clothes and post it on the internet, I mean, technically that could be considered porn, right? But it's a
Yeah.
and I actually do that. I have an OnlyFans where I actually do the
Mhm.
less family friendly version of this to really let people know
Yeah.
what's up, to really try and help people. And yeah, you could technically call it porn, but I think that's a very limiting perspective on what it really is, because it can be extremely powerful. And yeah, I like what you were saying. It can be very emotional, and it can bring up a lot of different emotions. And what happens, part of that is because you are in such a vulnerable position. One thing that you do during the yoga is something called soul gazing, right? Where you look into the left eye of the other person. And our society is uh, it's something that is completely new to people of the Western world, right? Staring into someone's left eye, it's such a vulnerable position, and you definitely have to drop your ego in order to be able to do that, right? And the uncomfortableness that comes from that is actually where you grow. And so it can be extremely powerful. And yeah, there are definitely a lot of emotions that can come up, positive or negative. See, normally people think 90% of the same thoughts every single day. They get in the routine and they don't have any new thoughts. And uh, the what happens is that they kind of get trapped into this stationary uh, construct, a very specific part of their mind, right? So they have all these same thoughts that are blocking deeper thoughts. And what happens is when you get in a position like that, and especially you start becoming aware of the breath, right, which shuts off the default mode network in the brain, and it kind of allows you to start digging deeper into your subconscious, so it clears all those normal everyday thoughts that you have and allow these deeper thoughts to start coming up. So a lot of times, like even like trauma and stuff can start arising, but this is actually a really good thing. You know what I mean? Trauma has to arise and you have to let it go in order for it to actually go away, because there's a lot of negative thoughts that are kind of running on in the background that you don't ever address, because your mind is so filled with your surface level day-to-day thoughts. And it's really powerful to dig down deep in your mind and allow these deep thoughts to come to fruition, in order to allow yourself to heal, right? And so there's just so much power um, behind the yoga, and it can be very, very interesting to do.
I totally agree. One thing you mentioned, trauma coming up.
Hmm.
I think there's many ways to get to that point, right? Of which one is Brahmasati yoga, and I fully believe in that coming up. And at the same time, what I think is the beautiful part of this, that you are together. There
Mm,
is a level of comfort.
yeah.
Yes, it's an uncomfortable position, but you are with someone that you trust, that you are connecting with. So if that trauma does come up, you are not alone meditating yourself. You
Yeah.
can receive the love from that person. So when you do it with someone that you feel that connection with, it can be very comforting,
Mm,
and they can guide you, right? And again, those persons might not be a health professional or a psychologist, but um, it is something that can help, that I
yeah.
truly believe in. Yeah. At the same time, I do want to address that, many people been saying, when I started doing this, yes, but do you know he has an OnlyFans and does porn? So what? So
Yeah.
what does that have to do with what he created?
Hmm.
Right? I think what you do is, with Pramasati Yoga, is incredibly beautiful and powerful. And I saw you trademark it as well, which I think is a very smart thing to do. And that's why, prior to me bringing it to Europe, I was like, let me ask you for permission. Hey, are you okay with me sharing this message?
Hmm.
Um, and because I just truly believe in the power of this. And as far as your OnlyFans, I have an OnlyFans too. And guys, I might not do porn. I might not go full nude. And you might be judging, hey, I'm all OnlyFans. That's okay. But listen, you are limiting yourself by perceiving it that way, right?
Hmm.
Because um, what someone does, or what someone chooses in their life, and you try to fixate that thought on how you live your life, that is on you. Brahmasati yoga is here to liberate you, to free you, and to do what you want to do. And whether that's porn or going on OnlyFans, it doesn't matter, right? Because this is all about love and connecting, and respecting everybody for who they are. And a beautiful thing that I want to address is, you on your Instagram shared a reel with, I believe it was a homeless transgender person
Hmm.
that you were doing this with. And it was so touching and so beautiful. And I just want to know, like, how did you come up with that? Were you on the streets randomly? Was it planned?
Yeah, so I had the thought arise like the day before I did it. And I was like, I think there's another level that I could speak to people at with this yoga, right? Because, people when they first glance at it, especially if they don't read the captions, they just find it extremely sexual. And although, yeah, that's part of it, one of the facets of prima Sada yoga is developing this sexual energy that can be very useful. But there's just so many deeper aspects to it, right? So there's the mindfulness aspect, there's a sexual aspect, but there's also the love aspect. And love goes so much deeper than anyone can really imagine. Most people have very limited views of love. And so I just kind of really wanted to show the potential and the possibilities, right? And so I was like, yeah, what if I found someone who is, not well accepted by society, and kind of showed love by doing it with them, And so I was like, yeah, maybe I could find a homeless person. And, even better, I found a transgender homeless person, which is someone who is like very rejected by society, sadly enough. And it was such an incredibly powerful experience. It was probably the most powerful experience that I've had doing the yoga, because I mean,
Wow.
she started crying in the middle of it, and like I started crying too, because the love was just that powerful, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, it got so powerful where, I mean, we had to stop. It was like the love was like overwhelming. It was really I mean, it was a very transcendent like experience. I mean, it was very, very powerful. I mean, you could compare it to something like a psychedelic experience,
Oh,
but like even realer, right? It was kind of the intensity and the profundity of some sort of psychedelic experience, yet more real, more like visceral. And so it was incredibly powerful. And sadly enough, people don't kind of they don't really look at it that way. But man, when you really look at that post and really dig deeply, it's just so incredibly powerful. And so that's kind of one of the things I want to do going forward. Of course I want to do prima sati yoga with attractive women like that I'm like sexually attracted to, but I also want to do it with people that aren't well accepted by society in order to show love, right? So that's kind of the idea moving forward, is that there will kind of be a combination of both to really kind of promote love and acceptance.
that is amazing. So I'm very, very touched by what you shared, because I've been seeing those videos, and it's very easy to judge on the surface. But again, there is a big, deeper meaning on it, guys. And I invite anyone that's listening right now to explore, to check out what it is, to try it for yourself. Um, and what I also got a lot of questions on, like, is this your girlfriend? You probably must hear this a lot as well. Or is there some kind of sexual relationship with the person you're doing it? For me personally, no, these are not my girlfriends. I don't have multiple wives. I also don't have sexual intercourse with them. And again, for me, if that does happen, there's no judgment either, right? Because if you choose to do it with your partner, because it is a very intimate setting, I think that that is a lovely thing, and especially as some kind of foreplay or transcending into something more beautiful, um, instead of just like going at it right away. Um, so yeah, again, explore it. So anyway, what is your experience with that? Because I'm sure you get that a lot too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, some of the girls that I do prima sati yoga with, we do take it all the way,
Mhm.
and have sexual intercourse, and like, yeah,
Yeah.
that can be extremely powerful. But you can have just as powerful experiences not doing that as well. It really just all depends on the vibe and what you guys are feeling. There's just so many different levels to it, right?
Mm.
I mean, there are just so many different facets. You can get just entwined in like the mindfulness, the meditation aspect, and get into a really deep meditative state, or you can really, really, really build up the sexual energy and have these incredible, like, kind of electric, like Kundalini type experiences from like all this like sexual energy. And so, yeah, it really just kind of depends on the vibe and where you guys want to take it. But you'll find that once you start getting into it, it kind of just evolves itself. You kind of get the hang of it and you explore it, and a lot of cool things can happen. And this is the thing; it's like you don't have to just have like prima sati yoga sex, right? I think a more practical idea for the Western world is, okay, how about at the start, as like foreplay, you start doing some prima sati yoga and maybe even some prima sati yoga intercourse. And what that does, that gets you in a very present, mindful state. So it reduces stress, reduces anxiety, gets negative thoughts out of your head, because a huge hindrance to pleasure in the bedroom is these negative thoughts, these insecurities, right? And prima sati yoga, it establishes this connection, insecurities fade away, and you get in the present moment, right? And so, sure, if you wanted to have prima sati yoga sex only, go for it. But I think a more practical idea is to start out with prima sati yoga and prima sati yoga sex, and then go ahead and have whatever, do whatever you want in the bedroom, just like you normally would. And the mindfulness that you kind of charged up beforehand makes
Mhm.
that experience, makes your regular experience in the bedroom even better. And so more and
Yeah.
more, like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not just like, so you practice this mindfulness in the moment, but it carries over, right?
Hmm.
So say in the morning, you do just like 10 minutes of like mindfulness, the whole rest of the day, you're going to be a little bit more mindful. You know what I mean? And so I think that's important to remember, and that we can kind of use that in that way.
Amazing. And this is true, guys. It's a beautiful transcending experience. So when we come on again for part two, I'll hope to get a lot of responses on what you did and how it was for you. Please let us know through our socials, through the YouTube comments, what was your experience? Because I'm dying to know. What is so? What I want to know is what is your goal? Because right now, you're in the. I believe in the early stages of Primasati Yoga,
Hmm.
and is your goal to really skill this, or what is next for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want to spread it to as many people as possible, and there's a balance, right? Because I want to spread it to as many people as possible. Of course, I want to post serious content, right? But I also want to post content that will go viral, and right. And so
Mhm.
that's the interesting balance, right? So I'm thinking of these very interesting poses that not only is actually beneficial, right, but that can also go viral, right? And so it can spread to a lot of people.
Yeah,
And yeah, I just want to try and scale this as much as I can, um, through whatever social media. And yeah, that's the goal, because the more people that it can reach, I think the better off the world will be. I think that that's really, especially what this Western world needs, is just more mindfulness practice, because
more love.
yeah, exactly. And more love. And when people can be more mindful, and they go hand in hand, right? I mean, the more mindful you get, the more you start realizing that love is really the fabric of the universe. Love is really like your truest nature. And that's
Mhm.
something that you can discover through mindfulness practice. I mean, it's very simple. No one would deny that if everyone had the peace and the equanimity and the love of like a Buddhist monk, you know what I mean? That the
Mhm.
world would be such a better place. And so the problem is that, of course, in this fast-paced Western world, no one wants to go and just sit there and meditate all day. That's boring. And so
Mhm.
I tried to create this cool practice that is fun, that people would actually do and enjoy, and that it would help them become more mindful and really find the love, right? And so really anything that I can do to just spread this to the rest of the world, as quickly as possible, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And the cool thing about really being mindful and getting in the present moment is that your creativity kind of soars through the roof. And so I've been able to be kind of very creative in my different ideas. And I think that the creativity is, the even more severe creativity is yet to come, right? So I think that there are going to be some cool things to happen in the future, even if I don't know exactly what they are yet. But I'm excited to see what the future brings.
Amazing, Connor. And again, I think this is um, not just through the content, but through the people and through the love that expands,
Mhm.
going to reach a lot more people. It reached me. It reached a lot of other people after that, and it's a very enlightening experience. So I want to thank you for sharing this with the world and being creative with the poses. I myself have been practicing a little bit with some creative ideas in the bedroom, but also you guys know I travel a lot. Um, so you get to be in different environments and explore with that. I think the whole goal is here to be creative, to explore that depth of the whole premisata yoga, and what is the beauty of it, and to go beyond the limitations of the mind.
Mhm.
And once you discover that, yeah, you come to beautiful places. So what else are you working on right now other than this?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find a cool way to incorporate spirituality
Hmm.
into my YouTube channels. Because my audience I've gained quite the spiritual audience, but since I've started posting this content, but still the majority of my audience is fitness guys. Fitness guys who want to get in shape and get girls, and so I'm thinking of a a cool type of content that can kind of incorporate both, right? So I'm thinking of doing kind of my old school type of content where I interact with people on the streets, but then kind of voice it over with some spiritual content. So it's really all about finding that balance, right?
Hmm.
Where I can promote spirituality to as many people as possible, right? Because no matter how good my content is, if people don't watch it, of course it doesn't spread. So I'm trying to find that balance between great spiritual content, but also content that goes viral. And so that's really what I'm working on. And that's really where my mind's been at, is just, how can I promote spirituality, but in a viral way? And so I've, a lot of different ideas have come to mind, but it's going to be a never ending process, how, different ways to go viral, and looking for the most efficient means to really spread the message. So that's all that's been going on in my mind. Yeah.
I want to touch on this subject because I am a good friend of mine. I know him personally very well. Elliot Hulse. Um,
Yeah.
he, he's on a journey that the journey of life, where he changed from being the guy that always talks about weights and lifting to conservatism to like what it takes to be a man, and how helping a lot of other men. And now there's a big community from his followers. It's like, yeah, you changed and this and that, but that is the beauty of growth, right?
Hmm.
We do change, and we realize what is more important and what life is about, or we go through different phases. And right now, the phase you are in, I think, is so much more um, deeper than the superficial stuff of and I resonate with that because I have been there myself, um, with the body, and again, we're still using that because at the end of the day, we all know, for us to reach people, we need to touch on the viral aspects of it.
Hmm.
That is just the nature of social media. So that is why you see even pictures of mine, or with videos of Connor, to yeah, with a little wink, a sexy touch, but you still get the deeper meaning of it. You still get to see what we really want to bring on board. And for the people that don't want to be on board and don't want to be a part of the train any longer, that is okay, because we will attract, and that's what you're doing, more people along the way that do understand, or that will follow you in your journey and are your true fans.
Hmm.
um, it is interesting to see that, because Elliot, it just reminded me of him. I think I spoke with him about this. That happens a lot, but he's still very strong and adamant on his journey to help young men become more confident in who they are. Even though he gets a lot of people that hate and follow, or but so I think that I just want to touch base on that, where I'm like, hey, Connor, thank you for staying true to who you are and following on this path, because I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, I totally respect Elliot for, going against the societal
Mm-hmm.
norms and risking, alienating some of his audience in order to promote what he cares about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's this constant tug of war between your true nature, which is this amorphous, changing impermanence, right? I mean, you are change at your very core, right? And then it's a tug of war with something called the ego, which is this really this illusory psychological construct. That's yeah, it's an illusion, but it seems very real. But it's this sense of self that wants to stay constant, right? It doesn't want to change, and so it's the tug of war between that and your true nature. And so, when you are watching someone on social media, and you start out watching them usually because they align with your beliefs, right? They align with your sense of self, and all of a sudden if they change their content, well, that scares you, that questions your identity, that questions your sense of self, because this person that you looked for um, to fortify your sense of self is now talking about these different ideas that go against what you identify as. And to the ego, that can be extremely scary. And so people lash out and they get offended, and they try and hate, and they try and anything that they can do to make themselves think, oh no, I'm right now. It's weird that the average person would rather be right than happy. And
Hmm.
it's a very interesting idea. But I think that we're moving in that direction where people are gradually becoming more and more open-minded. And I think that the world is going to become more open-minded and have all these new perspectives, and suffering is going to decrease. And even with everything that's happening in the world, it can seem kind of chaotic, but I think that it can be a catalyst for change and open-mindedness and new perspectives. And so I'm really optimistic about the future. I think that it's going to actually be a good place, despite what most people believe.
I agree with that absolutely. One last thing is the fasting. I wrote a book on intermittent fasting myself.
Oh, nice.
Helped a lot of people through that program. Won a Dutch Fitness Awards in 2018 with the highest rating in Amsterdam. So I was like, let me put my applied psychology in combination with fitness and weight loss into this little practical book, which is called Intermittent Fasting with applied psychology, and what it does for the mind. And I saw on your Instagram that you did, I think, a live stream on your journey, and then I saw as well that a lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, Connor, you're looking so unhealthy. You're losing weight." But I believe, and you can touch base on this, but like that you've never felt better.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so yeah, I did a 40-day fast, right? Where I didn't eat for 40 days, right? Only water. And I live streamed the entire thing to prove it. And really, that was just to jumpstart my spiritual channel, to open people's minds, because most people think that it wouldn't be possible. And of course, also to test myself, right? I mean, to expand my spiritual insights. 40-day fast can be extremely powerful in many ways. It definitely wasn't for health, I would say. I think that fasting can be incredibly useful for health, especially, intermittent fasting, 24-hour fasts, even in, up to 72-hour fasts. And depending on, even if you like, if you have some sort of chronic condition, maybe long-term fasting can be benefit you. But I didn't really do the 40-day fast for health. I did it for other reasons. And, at the end of the 40-day fast, I had lost 40 pounds, and I was definitely, even though I was still
Hmm.
technically at a healthy weight, technically, if you, relative to like the, body mass index, but, yeah, I wasn't the healthiest right after the fast, but as I, came back, I started to, it actually forced me, because I was more sensitive to food, to eat even healthier, right? And since the 40-day fast, not only because it really did some amazing things to my mind, and physical and mental health are way more connected than people think. Every thought that you have has a physiological response on the body, and so all these negative thoughts, if you're under a lot of stress, this can be very detrimental to your physical health, right? And so they're both very connected. And, after the 40-day fast, I think that it took me a while to recover. But as I did, I became more healthier than I ever have been. And, it's interesting. So, right after the 40-day fast, I took a biological or epigenetic age test, which essentially tells you what your biological age is, best based on DNA methylation, right? So it's the best gauge that we have so far about what someone's true age is, right? And you know, I took it right after the 40-day fast, and then I took it about 6 months later, right? And I actually reversed my age, my biological age, by 2 years
Oh.
in 6 months. So it went from like 26 to 24 in only 6 months. And so after that, I was like, wow, like whatever I'm doing, it seemed my body is absolutely loving it. And
Mm,
so yeah, I mean, just from that, it seems pretty objective that I'm the healthiest that I've ever been.
incredible. Wow. Um, yeah. So that's what I've been seeing, and yes, you look a lot different from back, in your day, but at the end of the day, and that's what I realized growing older. Really fanatic into bodybuilding. I was like, this is not what it is. Not, I'm here for health. I'm here to feel
Right.
good. I'm here to live the best life. And once you realize, anybody that's listening, whether you're male, female, if you're not competing on a stage, what are you doing it for, right? So Again, I want to thank you for sharing all this. Is there anything right now that you want to share, um, that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, not really, man. I think we covered pretty
Hmm.
much everything. We covered so many good topics, but I don't know. I really want to stress kind of the power of mindfulness and meditation and yoga, and stress that, you know, if you search for happiness in, materials or even relationships or experiences, you're bound to be miserable, right? Um, all those things are impermanent. And if you look for happiness in anything that's impermanent, it will lead to your suffering eventually. You identify with a new car. Well, what if you lose your car, it gets scratched up, then it messes with your happiness. If you tie up your happiness to a relationship, well, when that relationship is going bad, then it messes with your happiness. And there's a deeper sense of happiness and fulfillment that you can get through identifying with what's most real. And most people don't know what's most real, right? And that's where meditation and mindfulness come into play, because there is a you, right? There is a deeper you than the mind and the body that you can actually begin to discover. And when you start realizing what that is, it can be extremely liberating because it makes you non-attached to everything else, right? Everyone kind of takes reality at face value, and they kind of think that it's something that it's not. And a lot of people think that science is the best way to understand reality. Well, here's the issue with science. Science is incredible at understanding the content of reality. But when it comes to the context, it's a little different. So, for example, if you were in a dream, right, you could do all the science that you want in a dream, but it's not going to tell you that you're in the dream. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of the difference between content and context. And the issue with doing science when it comes to the nature of reality is that science believes that it's doing the science on this objective material world. But the issue is that there is no objective material world outside of consciousness, right? So all the science that we do is being perceived by the mind, right? And so you can't separate the mind from the external world. In fact, it's all one. So they've actually done some scientific experiments and show that matter doesn't actually exist until someone observes it. Matter is actually directly dependent on the mind. Before matter is observed, it's a wave of probability, right? That's it. And so it shows that the external world isn't necessarily fundamental, right? What is the most real, right, is consciousness, or our minds, right? And so the real way to get to the root of reality is directly through the mind, right? To examine the mind, right? Because it is actually what is your mind is actually what's kind of creating this entire reality. You've never known anything and can never know anything that's actually outside of your mind, right? Every perception that you have, every sensory perception that you have is filtered by this mind, right? And so that's the power of meditation, is that when you really dig deep, some incredible things can be found about the nature of reality. So if people are curious about what this is, like, what is reality? What are we doing here? Um, you know, don't settle and believe that you can't know, because, well, you can, at least to an extent, more than what the average person thinks. And so that's really, like, yes, meditation is awesome to reduce stress, reduce anxiety, right? It has all these physiological benefits, but the profundity that can come with deep mindfulness meditation, prima sati yoga, is just so incredibly profound and so mind blowing that it's just so worth doing, right? And that is where the real liberation comes from. That's where the true fulfillment comes from. And that's where the true happiness comes from, right? So take it from someone who's been happy, or who's, had everything they wanted in life: girls, fame, success, money, and didn't get any more happiness from it whatsoever, right? It wasn't until I started going down this spiritual route where the true fulfillment really
Mm.
comes. So I'm just trying to save people time by like saying that, you know. So I'm not saying don't go and, you know, yeah, be successful, do the things that you want in life, but don't let your happiness be dependent on it.
Wow, I love that. One final question that I'm sure a lot of people want to know is: do you have a girlfriend, partner you're currently with?
Yeah, so I don't have any specific or like exclusive
Mm.
um, partner that I'm with. You know, I have a great relationship with, um, you know, different
Mhm.
women for sure. And, you know, uh, I really value the actual relationship more than the like the title, right? So it's for me, you know, there's a difference between there's quite the profound difference that most people can't really see, but there's a difference between the word apple and the apple itself. And most people get too caught up in the symbols, right? They
Yeah.
get too caught up in the words and in language, right? And so I'm really more about the um, experiences, right? And I think that it's tricky, especially in today's society, when you get into relationships. You know, geez, society has indoctrinated us into these. I would argue that they can be quite destructive ideas about relationships. You know, through like even like Disney movies and love songs. They give us the wrong idea about love, and most people confuse love with attachment, right? And so people think that they're in love when really they're attached. And there's
Mhm.
definitely a difference between the two, right? So if you like, for example, if you love a flower, right, you're going to admire that flower like from afar. You're not going to pick up the
Oh,
flower.
show.
Yeah, exactly. That's an Osho quote. Exactly. I love it. I love it that you know that. Yeah. And so you're not going to pick up
Mhm.
that flower and kill the flower because it kills the flower. You know what I mean? And so I think that's an important concept to remember in relationships. I think it's important to really admire the other person and love them for exactly how they are, but don't try and manipulate them, don't try and control them, and don't try and change them, right? Because you're going to end up changing them into something that you like don't love anymore, right? And that's kind of where all the suffering in relationships comes from. Is kind of it's this very shallow version of love instead of loving the person for what they actually are, right? And so I don't think that I could ever have a relationship again where I have like specific rules. You know what I mean? That just
Mhm.
isn't to me what relationships are about. And the moment you start having strict rules like in relationships, then things start to go bad. You know, there's good to have like guidelines, you know, like, hey, like, how about we be honest with each other and how about we communicate with each other? You know what I mean? But once we have these strict rules, there's a lot of resentment that comes in. Once you start kind of
Mhm.
limiting someone's freedom, um, just some bad stuff starts going on in each other's minds, and they start resenting each other, and they start feeling restricted, and they start having all this cognitive dissonance, and it just kind of takes away from what true, awesome, real, loving relationships can really be. You know,
I
and
agree.
so I love like I want to have all the deepest possible relationships that I can, but I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure if I would ever put a I maybe I'm not sure if I would ever put a title on something like possibly, but I know that there wouldn't be any harsh rules or restrictions at least in that relationship.
So, you're both free. You're both beautiful flowers. You
Mhm.
water each other,
Yes.
but it also means that you can fornicate with other women as they can with other men, and you are okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. You
Mhm.
know, uh,
Mm.
I wouldn't lie and say that, you know, right now, especially, you know, the ego's a tricky thing. It's not like
Mhm.
it's
It
it just
is,
is
yeah.
it's not like it's just dissolved all at once. It's actually, you know, I'm a math guy. I would call it like an asymptotic
Mm.
dissolution. So essentially, you know, it decreases and decreases and decreases, but it never really goes away. You know, it approaches zero, but never really gets there. And that's kind of the trickiness of the ego.
Yeah.
And so right now, I would be lying to say that my preference wouldn't be to have a woman who is exclusive to me, right? For sure. But then again, I just kind of realized that, here's the thing. If you're always looking for this change in the external world to find your happiness, you're just never going to get there, right? There's always going to be some situation that arises that's going to cause you suffering. And it's my deal, right? It's my thing. It's my own mind that is creating this negative idea over my partner, sleeping with another man. It's not inherently negative. It's the negativity that my mind is projecting onto it. And so I would rather fix like my own mind, purify my own mind. So then I will be comfortable in any relationship rather than trying to manipulate the relationship, because it's still always going to be my issue, right? Even if that woman is exclusive to me, if I have that insecurity, I'm always going to be worried about it. You know what I mean? And I'm never going to be truly at peace. And so, Jesus had a great quote. He said, "Clean the inside of the cup and dish, and the outside will be clean." Right? So you want to purify your internal world, and that makes the external world purified as well. You can't really do it the other way around. And so, even though, yeah, it would be my preference right now, because that's how
Mhm.
I've been raised throughout my entire life, is that, yeah, all these men want a loyal woman who is exclusive to them, right?
Mhm.
Um, but again, it's just this kind of societal conditioning, in caveman times, like if a woman were to like sleep with another caveman, the first caveman wouldn't suffer because of it, right? Of course, there's this like competition, right? For sure. There's this evolutionary competition, but there isn't that like suffering because of it. You know what I mean? This suffering that we have in the relationships is kind of due to our societal conditioning, and it's something that I believe that we can dissolve. And so I actually like testing my mind and putting myself in these uncomfortable situations, right, in order to help me purify my own mind. And so
Uh-huh.
even though it's uncomfortable for me right now, yeah, that's kind of a challenge that I would like to face. Mhm.
That is incredible. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a free mind. And again, it's not easy because you heard him say it's a preference. And the same goes for me. As a free spirit myself, I totally recognize what you say, especially the Osho story you just shared about watering each other as flowers, not controlling. I'm very sensitive to girls that try to control me, or Jesse, where are you, or why are you traveling? One of the reasons why I choose to be with women that have a similar mindset. And again, one thing that I want to mention, we can only understand things from the level of our perception. So if we change our perception, or we are open to experiencing different things, then we can grow. And that's why traveling and experiencing different cultures has been so liberating to me.
Mhm.
Um, because I'm, as in being in Russia, I'm like, I have this idea from the media, but I'm here and I'm like, everything here is like 10 times better.
Mhm.
The women, the culture, the food, the values. Nobody talks about that until you experience it. So, Connor, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Coming on, I really look forward to seeing you again for part two, because I'm sure we'll get a lot of response from people that will try it. Hopefully, after this, make sure to follow Connor. He is on YouTube and of course Instagram. I'll put it on the description as well. And keep shining your light, brother. I
I
appreciate
appreciate.
you.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. And again, when we have open borders, I'm sure that we our paths will cross. Um, because where are you right now?
Yeah, Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. I love
Mhm.
Texas. Yeah. So we'll definitely see each other and do some fun things, videos, and get the primasati yoga out there. Um, thank you again, and I'll speak to you soon.
Awesome. Sounds good, man. Yeah, thank you.